Hello mate, welcome back to the channel. So super exciting one today. We have finally got Melee League, and we thought we were going to get Boat League, but we got Melee, and I don't know about you, but I am even more excited about that. So all of our league start ideas that I'm going to be talking about today are Melee based, and we've got two sort of main flavors that I've been sort of stewing on since we got the patch notes last week, and one of them is Ignite, and the other is Bleed. And then I'm going to throw in a few extra bonus ideas, things that I've seen people talking about, other creators, things that I've wanted to start and league start for a pretty long time. And now with this league and all the huge melee buff changes, probably are going to be super strong even on league start with very low investment. Okie dokie, first thing we are going to be looking at is our Ignite builds. We've got two of them. One of them is much more accessible, I think easy going, and the other one we'll get to next will be a little bit more of a spicy, super experimental idea that I personally think is really cool. Right, Slam, Ignite, Chieftain. Okay, so I've called this EQ on here, but you could use Earthquake, you could use Consecrated Path, which I think could be really interesting because you're getting that conversion, so you don't have to worry about the rest of the other 50% of the conversion that we don't get from Avatar of Fire. You can use Ground Slam, you can use Earth Shatter. Any big hit slam build is going to be good. Ascendancy, let's just look at the nodes that we're picking up here. So main things I would say is probably, if you want to go defensive, you can get the resistances node first, and that will just take a lot of pressure off of your gear slots. But I think the main thing that I would do, especially if you're on softcore, would be just to come down and get the Warcry buff, because then you can activate your Ancestral Cry, which is going to give you defenses anyway. You're going to get a lot of resistances and max resist. As well, you're going to be getting max powered seismic cries, and that is the most important part of this for your slams. It's going to make leveling and clear just really nice and smooth. And then for that same reason, I'd then go to Tukahama, and I'd grab Tukahama's War Herald, because we're getting Fist of War on our body armor, extra damage, and just again quality of life much smoother. You're getting that double hit. Then I would probably get the resistance node, and then the reason that we haven't got max resist is because we're actually capping max resist without even having to get that, which is kind of crazy in this new meta. But then finally I would get Hinakura's Death Fury, and that's because you need to get your Ignite chance up high enough that it's going to matter, and the only way to get Ignite would be to like get your flammability and get that sort of automation going. You get some stuff on the tree, but you're also going to get like a Eldritch implicit on your helmet and things like this. So yes, you don't want to, I don't think you should do that too early. I think it's a little bit of a bait if you go too early on it. You're going to get much nicer and smoother quality of life stuff going this way, in my opinion. All right, and okay, next up what we got? Exerts, War Cries, Explosions. Yeah, that's the core of it. And then the Propagator Mace. Yeah, so I think ultimately what you want to be going for is an Impact Force Propagator, the experimental high space, because you're getting the 2 extra Warcry exerts. Now we're not going, we're not Berserker, we're not taking a ton of Warcry stuff on the tree. We get 1 extra exert here. So something like Intimidating Cry, which is going to be giving us our double damage. We don't then need, we're going to get like, we're hitting so slow that we'll get, what, 6 exerts out of that, or no, 5 exerts out of our double damage cry. And by the time that that's happened, that's like 5 seconds. Longer than that, because we're going between packs. We're going to have the Warcry up again, because we have some Warcry cooldown and some Warcry duration stuff as well. So yeah, Propagator Mace I would say is huge, because it basically gives us like, a little mini version of what the Berserker Ascendancy gets. Mace, yeah, so I definitely pick up the Mace All Damage Can Chill, because of the way that they've changed the way that action speed works on bosses as well. This is going to be huge, and it's just such a good single point change. I think we've got it down here. Yeah, it's like such a good single point node that just gives us chill and gives us massive chill because of the amount of fire damage that we are doing. And then what else? Oh yeah, the big Doomfletch. This is the elephant in the room, right? So we saw, if I can load it up here, where is it? Yes, we got we got this this Doomfletch node that was shown on maces. Now there's some other interesting ones here, and they said there's going to be 100, so there might be some even better ones, but for maces in particular, gaining 50%, up to 50% as of every element as extra damage is absolutely massive. Because, not only because you think, oh, well, we're doing Ignite, but we've got Avatar of Fire as well, right? So we're actually getting like 100% more damage from that nerf. 25 cold, 25 from our lightning, and then 50 from our fire. So that is just an absolute bonkers enchant, and that's why we're not using Moroi Urki. That's why we're going with the Exert base, and then, you know, even though we might be able to get slightly more damage, 100% extra element is going to be absolutely massive. And then, okay, so this is a little bit of an interesting tech idea thing, which is, we saw that we've got the new Penance Mark. I'll put it up in the video here. And yeah, we got the new Penance Mark rings back. So there was gloves that you could get Penance Mark on before. For those of you that don't know, Penance Mark is going to be giving us a chance when we hit the marked enemy to spawn phantasms, and they level based on the level of the area. So they have a rough, the estimation is that they have a base life of between like 20,000 to 30,000, which is gonna, when you work it all out, it works out at like, you know, about 100, it's about 100 to 150,000 base fire damage that we can then ignite off. So for those single targets, we want to be using those phantasms on our bosses, and when we're getting into like Guardians and Shaper and all the Ubers and Pinnacles and stuff like that. And then the only other kind of tech that I really want to bring up here is the Red Nightmare. Okay, so the Red Nightmare jewel basically takes 50% of our fire resistance nodes in the area and converts it to block chance, attack block chance. And this is how we've got 39% block chance without using a staff or any other block nodes or anything like that. And that is because we've converted all of these strength nodes. That's why the pathing's a bit clustered around here. We've converted all of these into fire resistance. And now that not only helps us with getting a ton of block, it's just like 39% block, which is amazing. And we're not really losing anything from the strength. We've got plenty of strength. But we're also getting all that fire resistance that is, again, converted at 50% value over to our cold and lightning. And that is going to be giving us a huge quality of life on League Start when we're not worried about getting resistances on our gear. All right, that is our generic sort of safer Ignite melee build. And now what I will do is I will load up our Winds of Flame build. All right, I'm calling this build the Winds of Flame build. And this is basically a combination of 3 quite specific mechanics that just stood out to me when we got the patch notes and we were looking at things. Glacial Hammer of Shattering got like a 230% more damage buff, basically. It was one of the largest buffs out of all the melee skills. It got an absolute huge buff. Let me explain the core sort of idea here and how it's working. So we're using Winds of Fate, huge physical damage, which we're converting all over to fire. And that is because that skill conversion is getting converted before we do the conversion on the weapon. So you can ignore all the weapon conversion stats. It gives us 50% maximum crit, and then non-critical strikes deal no damage. Now, because we are using Glacial Hammer of Shattering, as you may or may not know, we're going to be critting on the 3rd strike every time. And with multi-strike, we can get to that 3rd strike quite quickly. So that's why we can then basically just completely gimp our crit chance. And we know that we're going to override that with the guaranteed crits. So that's why we take Maraline's Fallacy. Now, why are we taking Maraline's Fallacy? Why are we trying to get all of this crit multiplier? And that is because of the revamped Perfect Agony node here. So this keystone is now pretty radical. The reason that this is so powerful is because we are now converting all of this multiplier. We know we're going to guarantee a crit. We only need to be crit fishing, really. We've got quite a high attack rate. So we only need to hit once, twice, 3 times to get that nice ignite going and a high roll. And we're getting all of this multi that is just converted over. So that's the kind of core idea here, is we're fishing for these huge crits with our guaranteed crit on a very high added attack percentage skill now in Glacial Hammer. On top of this, the things to note, I guess, would be that we have the Hatred buff has gone up from 25 to 39%, and that is extra physical as cold. And the reason that is huge is because we're converting all of it with a cold to fire gem and Avatar of Fire. So all of that cold gets converted. We were looking at doing using Emberwake, but I think that it's a bait. even though we're getting an additional ignite, it gives us an additional ignite that we can inflict. Of that extra damage that we've gained, we're losing, you know, nearly all of it. We're losing 80% of it. It's like a 20% more damage multi, whereas if we just got a really good ring, the Lake of Calandra mechanic for jewelry is coming back, so I think we're going to be getting some absolutely busted rare rings that end up propping up, and we might even be able to craft ourselves. Having the rare ring option is actually going to end up way better, even though Ember Wake is pretty cool, and it's an interesting idea, but ultimately I don't think it gives us an absolute ton. Rislatha's Coil is going to be really popular this league, but it just gives us a chance to fish those higher and higher crits. And I would recommend this, but it could be super expensive, so we'll see. All right, next we're going to get onto Elemental Ailment Immunity and how we're doing that with this build, which is another cool defensive layer. So this tech is using a Bubonic Trail, which are a Abyss Boots, which gives us a couple of Abyss sockets. But it also gives us 60% reduced duration of elemental ailments when we have a rare Abyss Jewel. Not hard to do. So we're getting 6% reduction there of elemental ailment duration. And then on the tree, we use Fortify. Now you could do this. I'm using Celestial Embrace, the gloves. But you could also just do this through like a Leap Slam with Fortify, gem, a support gem attached. This, then we can get the Mastery, as long as you're at 20 Fortify, then you can get 40% reduced duration, taking us to 100, and therefore elemental ailments will not affect us. And that is just a really cool mechanic. I really like how that is working, and it's just really lovely on this part of the tree. Plus we're getting Fortify, which is a lovely defensive layer. The other nice thing about using Cinder Swallow that I want to make a point of, Bubonic Trails give us Death Walk, and Death Walk is going to consume skills, and consuming skills is going to recharge our Cinder Swallow, and Cinder Swallow is a brilliant flask for our Ignite builds, and it doesn't actually show it on here, which is strange, but it's essentially going to increase the amount of fire damage that enemies take, which is a multiplier, which is super huge. I think it goes up to 10%. The last thing I guess I want to mainly sort of focus on that I think is sort of an important part of this build idea would be Immortal Cry, and the fact that we get a ton of duration. We're getting duration on the tree, and that's to help our war cries, but also it's to help our uptime of things like Immortal Cry and our buffs. And what that means is that we're essentially going to be getting like a almost permanent Immortal Call. We're going to be, should be absolutely fine. The couple of things that like I think are interesting to look at. So on this, I've got Replica Abyssus. It's given us a ton of flat damage, which half of the non-fire is getting converted to fire. Gives us a huge amount of multi. The elemental damage that we take is increased, however. I'm not sure that's going to be a problem, to be honest. We'll have to wait and see. So these are the things to discover and play around with if you do try this out. Again, experimental idea. Can't be 100% sure these numbers are accurate. All right, next up we have got a we're going into the bleed theme now. And we've got a Retaliation Gladiator build. So this is going to be the experimental one, and next up I'll give you like a bleed that's I expect to be a little bit more typical. But yeah, basically it's really simple with this. It's like you spend virtually like 7 points, I think it is, or something. You get Versatile Combatant, you get a little bit of extra block, and out of nowhere you've all of a sudden just your 65-65 on your block. And then if you choose to take this node from the ascendancy, then you're seeing it like it works out about, I think it's like 85 or 90% block chance on both, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Now there are some boss skills and stuff that can go through that, but in general, again, we're not thinking about Uber content here. We're thinking about getting to maps, we're getting into our Atlas and farming on League Start. So very, very powerful. You can take, we're going to try out this retaliation thing. So basically there is a 80% chance. If you take this 50% chance, any mastery, you can take another 10% chance. Every time you use your retaliation skill, it has a chance not to use the cooldown and to be available again. And then we can get 20% from a new anoint here, which is the King of the Hill. So that gives us, anyway, 80% total. So almost every, if you think, imagine on average, that means you're going to get 3 to 4 uses out of a single cooldown on average. Obviously, that will vary. But yeah, you're going to have pretty high uptime on these retaliation skills. Now, it kind of depends because there's another node here that says, okay, you get a 25% chance when you use a retaliation skill to get another one. To get the cooldown use of another one, right? The problem is that we've only seen 3 of the retaliation skills, and I can't imagine how they would all be used together. So We've got the Blade Storm one, which gives us, is for dual wielding. Then you've got a Bleed one, which is used with a shield and a one hand. And then you've got another one that requires a shield, which is the sort of like death beam lasers from the sky, which is like lightning based, right? It's more spell casting scaled. We definitely know that you could use those too, which would be cool, but it wouldn't scale very well. So this kind of really depends on whether or not there's going to be another good option for us. If there is, and there's a generic one that kind of everyone can use or something, this would be really powerful, because if we're using 3 to 4 uses of our main retaliation skill, which would be Eviscerate, we're going to almost certainly trigger this every time as well. And then when we use this other retaliation skill, that could then have a chance to be reusable and then give us back the other one. So we could get potentially situations where we're getting almost permanent uptime on retaliation skills that are just triggering off themselves. And that could be really powerful, because the base attack effectiveness is like 620%, something like that on Eviscerate. That's going to give us huge bleeds. And then you can scale this really effectively, like 30% damage here, 20% damage, 20% damage. There's a lot of damage available to retaliation skills on the tree down there. And then if we have things like Seismic Cry and we're using War Cries, I think we should get Fortify. We're going to get Rage. Rage is going to add to that. The only other thing is this Mastery is really cool as well for Bleed. 8% increased duration of ailments. And so it could mean that Crimson Dance could be very viable if we're getting essentially double our bleed duration. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that pans out. It might not actually be like Crimson Dance is the way to go with it, but that might be better single target. So we'll see. The interesting thing that you can do as well when your retaliation skills are down is Double Strike. Now, the reason I think Double Strike could be really powerful is because not only are you getting a huge hit rate going, so you're going to be getting your rage up very, very quickly and maintaining your rage, you're also getting access to Vow Double Strike. And Vow Double Strike, I think, could be a really, really useful skill to add on to this, especially with the fact that we've seen, if we go back to that, this window here, we can see that socketed Vow Gems have 100% reduced soul gain prevention duration. This could give us huge uptime on our the boys, right, on our Vow Double Strike clones, which for bossing could be really, really powerful, and even just like general rares and stuff in maps. So we don't know if you're going to be able to use these, what weapons you're going to be able to use these on, so you can't take that for granted. The last node that I took, obviously, that cannot be understated is Gratuitous Violence, and that is because that is going to give us almost all of our clear. So when we're clearing maps, again, League Start, it's going to be very, very, very comfortable. Just get 20% bleed pops. This used to be 10%, this has been buffed, so I think, yeah, I think this is like an easy win. I don't see how this could go wrong unless the retaliation skills are absolutely terrible. And if that is the case, then I think I would just recommend you could just quite easily transition this tree over into a Bleed Spectral Shield Throw. And Bleed Spectral Shield Throw, I think, is going to be very, very possible because of the increases to the evasion, the defensive stats that we're going to be getting from quality. On top of that, Spectral Shield Throw is getting a huge buff in terms of its damage effectiveness, so that is just another win there as well. Ziz and British Exile have put together, I think British Exile is definitely doing a guide, but I know Ziz said he was maybe looking at it, so there's 2 people that you could have a look at. I will put a link down to British Exile's channel, and you can have a look at, you know, the things he's thinking about with it. That, I think, would be a really good backup plan, basically. Alright, so the last few builds that I sort of wanted to touch on are just a few different options. If, you know, those don't particularly tickle your pickle, you don't want to do a ailment-based build, then I think Lolcahol is going to be looking at a really, really interesting Lightning Strike Warden. I think it's going to be huge, and he's working on a build guide at the minute, updating his build guide, but he did Lightning Strike Raider last league, and it was very effective. Now, how easy it was to pick up and whether it's everyone's playstyle are 2 different things. It's definitely a little bit of a trickier, more detailed sort of like league start to put together. It takes a little bit more consideration. But with the changes to Lightning Strike, to Warden, it looks like it's actually going to be easier than ever to just play Lightning Strike on League Start and have a really good time. I know a lot of people are excited about this, and I think that could be a really good shout. Next up, Frostblades. So whether you're going Frostblades of Catabasis, or if you're going just, you know, vanilla Frostblades, there's some options here. I think Warden is interesting, and Trickster as well. Zish is looking at both of these, and, you know, basically it's kind of a difference of, do you want more defenses, and with all of the new bases and the huge amount of evasion and energy shield it looks like we can get, as well as some quality of life stuff, or do you want to go Warden and get more damage and have the excitement of something new? So I expect something from Zish to come out, so definitely check his channel out and go and take a look if you're interested in that. And then finally, Mage Fist. I absolutely love Mage Fist's videos. I think it's the Red Alert thing that I enjoy. Personally, it's a build that I have been interested in for a really long time in playing at League Start, but it's just never felt very viable. It's felt like it would always be a pain. I've actually tried it in the past and didn't get along with it and transitioned out. Now Flicker Strike is looking better than ever, and with the amount of damage it's got just as a buff, it was already viable in the past. It's going to be much more viable now, so I think that's definitely an option. Go check out his video. I will link it down below. Alright, so that is where my head is at. That's what I've been thinking about. Obviously, we've got a few different bonus ideas there, but mainly it's looking at ailments on the Chieftain or on Glad, and I think Glad is going to be super smooth, but Chieftain just has that fire, you know. It has that thing for me that I've just loved it ever since they've started reworking it, especially with the latest rework. So I'm curious if it has inspired anything for you, if you're thinking about doing something similar, and I guess just let me know if you think as well that there's anything that I'm missing that I could look out for that could really help me on League Start. I will be putting together a video which will be a proper in-depth, this is the League Start, we'll go into the Atlas plans and what we're planning for 325, but that's going to be in the next couple of days, so I've got a chance. If there's any help, please send it my way. And I guess, yeah, if you like the video, then subscribe as per usual. I would massively appreciate it. Really excited. 325, we got to like 1,000 subs recently, which is awesome. Okay, that's enough of that. Friends, exiles, thank you so much for watching. As always, I will see you in the next one. Ta-da.